Mohammed Ahmadinejad was reelected, but there was widespread accusations of voter fraud, and his election was met with massive protests. So, can you tell us about this? Well, first of all, can you give us some more additional context to these protests? And then also, were these protests similar in character to what we're seeing now in Iran?
Right. So the 2009 protests, you're referring to the Green Movement. So those protests saw supporters of the more reformist candidate Mir Hossein Mousavi come out to the streets to claim voter fraud, and they came out in mass protests. Now, I think those protests in 2009 were different in tone and certainly in scale. So that was a protest about the specific election and allegations of voter fraud. So, as we just discussed, Iran did have or does have a democratically elected parliament and president that sits alongside the religious institutions. And I think many Iranians sort of had faith that the democratic institutions, specifically the office of the presidency, could um, institute sort of real policy changes and be a real meaningful venue for change and policy reform, especially social reform. So those that were for hoping for more reform of the Islamic Republic put their hopes in this candidate, Hossein Mousavi. And the 2009 protests, the Green Movement protests, were about the specific allegations of voter fraud. So there were anti-regime activists there, but the tone of the protest, again, was more about the election than about the downfall of the entire regime. The protests were also relatively limited in scale to sort of major cities and the youth and urban intellectuals. Now, since then, since 2009, I think most Iranians have lost faith in the democratic institutions of Iran, and they really see the power being held with the office of the supreme leader, and they don't really see hopes that elections would cause any meaningful reform. So, more recent protests, they're chanting "death to the dictator." They're chanting death to Khamenei. They want an end to the system. It's not about clean elections. Most Iranians have lost confidence in the electoral system. So the protests that we've seen in 2019, 2021, 2022, and those that are happening today are coming from a much, much broader cross section of Iranian society, and the tone is certainly different. They're calling for an outright regime change.